Look around you, not just at this room, but at the world you carry in your pocket, a world of infinite connections, of endless streams of information, of constant buzzing notification. Now, I want you to ask yourself a very simple but profound question. Where is your attention right now? Is it here with these words, or is it on a message you need to answer, a worry about tomorrow, a scroll through a curated life that isn't your own? We live in an age that is constantly making withdrawals from our attention, and we so rarely stop to consider the balance. We speak of budgeting our time, of managing our money, but we leave our attention, our most valuable asset, completely unguarded. I am here to suggest a new, more urgent form of wealth, a new currency, and that currency is your attention. Your attention is not just a fleeting moment of focus. It is the most powerful substance you possess. It is the literal energy of your consciousness. Where you place it, you place your life force. What you pay attention to, you empower. What you ignore, you allow to wither. Think of it this way. Every time you give your attention to something, you are casting a vote for what you want to exist in your world and in you. When you give it to anger, you are funding its growth. When you give it to creativity, you are investing in its expansion. When you give it to a shallow argument online, you are spending your precious coins in a place that offers no return. Of all the resources we are taught to manage our time, our finances, our physical health, we are rarely, if ever, schooled in the management of our most fundamental asset, our attention. We treat it as a passive byproduct of consciousness, something that simply happens to us, flitting from one stimulus to the next. We say we lost our focus or that something caught our eye, using language that frames us as victims of a wandering mind. This is a profound and costly misunderstanding. Your attention is not a passive reaction. It is your most potent active currency. It is the literal energy of your consciousness, the life force that animates your awareness. Every moment of your waking life, you are spending this currency. The direction of your focus is not a trivial detail. It is the primary economic activity of your existence. Where you place your attention, you place your power. You are, in effect, casting a continuous vote for what you want to grow, to exist, and to become real in your world. This is because attention is not merely observational, it is generative. When you pay attention to a creative idea, you are not just noticing it, you are fueling it with the cognitive resources needed to develop. You are connecting neurons, building pathways, and bringing it closer to manifestation. Conversely, when you pay relentless attention to a worry, you are not just observing a problem, you are actively constructing a labyrinth of anxiety, reinforcing the neural architecture of fear until it becomes the dominant landscape of your mind. The object of your focus expands in your reality, not because the world has changed, but because you have funded its significance with your most valuable resource. This generative principle applies to every domain of life. In relationships, the attention you give to a loved one is not just time spent. It is a tangible infusion of value that tells them they matter, strengthening the bonds of connection. In your professional life, the focused attention you bring to a complex problem is the essential capital required to forge a solution. Even in your internal world, the attention you pay to a feeling of gratitude amplifies its presence, while the attention you withhold from a fleeting resentment allows it to wither. This is why the management of attention is the most critical form of personal economics. You are the chief investment officer of your own mind, and every glance, every thought, every moment of sustained focus is a strategic allocation of capital. The returns on these investments are not abstract. They compound into the very substance of your character, your capabilities, and your experienced reality. To be careless with your attention is to be a profligate spender, leaking your life force on distractions that offer no meaningful return. To be intentional is to be a wise investor, building a life of the principle that what you pay attention to, you empower, is not a mystical concept but a fundamental law of cognitive engineering. Your attention is the most potent fertilizer in the ecosystem of your mind. Whatever seed, be it a thought, a fear, a goal, or a resentment, receives a steady stream of your focus will inevitably put down roots and grow, regardless of whether you initially intended to cultivate it. This is because focused attention is the primary mechanism the brain uses to determine importance. The neural pathways that are most frequently activated by your focus are strengthened, becoming the default routes for your thinking and the filters through which you perceive your world. When you consistently pay attention to feelings of grievance, you are not merely observing a pre-existing state, you are actively performing the neurological equivalent of weightlifting for that specific emotional response. You are building muscular, well-defined circuits of resentment that will be easily triggered in the future. You are, quite literally, practicing being aggrieved, and as with any skill, practice makes permanent. The feeling grows not because the external offense is growing, but because you are funding its internal infrastructure with your cognitive capital. Conversely, when you consciously redirect your attention to a moment of appreciation, to a problem you can solve, or to an act of kindness, you are performing the same powerful act of neural construction. You are strengthening the circuits for resilience, gratitude, and agency. You are not just thinking positive. You are engaging in the deliberate and rigorous architecture of your own mind, building robust mental structures that can withstand the inevitable pressures of life. This empowering effect extends beyond your internal world into your external reality. A team member who receives your undivided attention feels valued and is empowered to contribute their best work. A creative idea that you nurture with sustained focus begins to reveal its hidden dimensions and connections, empowering you to bring it to life. Even a difficult conversation, when met with the full force of your attentive presence, is empowered to move toward resolution rather than descend into conflict. The inverse is equally true. What you withdraw your attention from, you disempower. A distraction that is ignored loses its power to hijack your agenda. A negative thought pattern, starved of the oxygen of your focus, will eventually recede. This is the immense power and responsibility you hold. You are not a passive bystander to your own mind, watching thoughts and emotions parade by. You are the curator of the exhibition, with the power to decide which pieces get the prominent spotlight and which remain in storage. Every moment, you are making a choice about what to empower, and in doing so, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming and the world you are creating, both within and around you. We operate within a vast and sophisticated ecosystem, specifically engineered to capture and commodify our focus. This is the unspoken attention economy, a marketplace where our concentration is the primary product being bought, sold, and traded, often without our conscious consent. We are not merely distracted, we are being farmed. Every ping, every notification, every endlessly scrolling feed is a carefully designed trapdoor intended to funnel our most precious resource, our conscious awareness to reservoirs that are then monetized by platforms and advertisers. This economy thrives on our impulsivity. It is designed to encourage unthinking spending of our attention, to keep us in a state of reactive consumption rather than intentional investment. It does not want us to be frugal or strategic. It profits from our profligacy. The currency of this economy is not just minutes and seconds, which is a crude measurement, but the quality and depth of our engagement. A moment of outrage, a spike of envy, a hit of dopamine from a like. These are the you transactions that the system is optimized to create. When we unconsciously surrender our focus to these engineered experiences, we are not just wasting time, we are actively enriching a system that is often at odds with our own well-being and purpose. We are, in effect, working for free, paying for free services with the very substance of our lives. Recognizing this dynamic is the first and most crucial step toward reclaiming our sovereignty. It transforms the feeling of being vaguely distracted into the clear-eyed understanding that we are participants in an economic system where we hold the core asset. This realization allows us to move from being naive consumers in this marketplace to becoming shrewd investors. We can begin to ask the critical questions: what is the return on investment for this hour of my attention? Is this platform providing me with value commensurate with the cognitive capital I am spending, Or am I simply being mined for data and engagement metrics? The attention economy relies on our ignorance of the true value of what we are spending. The moment we awaken to the fact that our focus is our fortune, the entire game changes. We can install mental tariffs and regulations. We can choose to boycott platforms that degrade our mental environment, just as we might avoid companies that pollute our physical one. We can deliberately invest our attention in ventures that yield a high personal return, deep learning, genuine connection, and purposeful creation. To navigate the modern world is to be constantly solicited by this marketplace. The goal cannot be to escape it entirely, but to engage with it on our own terms, with our eyes wide open to the transaction that is always taking place. To regain control over your cognitive wealth, you must move from passive participant to active auditor. This begins with the deliberate and often uncomfortable practice of conducting a rigorous attention audit. This is not a casual recollection of how you spent your day, but a forensic examination of your mental expenditures. It requires you to become a detached observer of your own mind, tracking the flow of your focus with the same precision an accountant tracks the flow of capital. The goal is to create a ledger of your consciousness, to see in stark, undeniable terms where your life's energy is actually going. For a defined period, a day, or even a single waking hour, you must consciously note the objects of your focus. Was it the present moment conversation or the phantom argument you were rehearsing in your head? Was it the chapter of a book that expanded your understanding or the 47th scroll through a social media feed that left you feeling hollow and comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel? You must categorize these expenditures, which were strategic investments in your growth, your relationships, or your peace, and which were frivolous liabilities, draining your reserves without offering any meaningful return. This it is revelatory because it bypasses our subjective and often forgiving narratives about ourselves. We might believe we are productive, but the audit may reveal that our focus was fractured into 100 tiny, insignificant tasks, leaving no lasting capital. We might think we are connected, but the ledger may show that our attention was given to a screen more often than to the eyes of the people we love. This process shines a light on the hidden leaks, the small, repetitive drains on your focus that, in aggregate, represent a massive loss of cognitive capital. It reveals the gap between your stated priorities and your actual financial behavior in the economy of attention. You may claim that your health is a priority, but it shows only a paltry sum of attention spent on mindful eating or exercise. You may believe your creative work is central, yet the ledger reveals that the lion's share of your focus was consumed by administrative trivia and the urgent, but unimportant demands of others. This clarity, while often confronting, is the bedrock of intentional living. You cannot manage what you do not measure. The attention it provides the raw, unvarnished data you need to make informed, strategic decisions. It allows you to close wasteful accounts, to defund mental habits that no longer serve you, and to consciously reallocate your most valuable resources toward the projects and people that truly constitute a rich and meaningful life. It is the essential first step in moving from being a victim of distraction to becoming the architect of your focus. The ultimate and most profound consequence of understanding attention as currency is the realization that you are, at every single moment, purchasing your experience of reality. You are not a passive recipient of a pre-made world. You are its active financier, using the gold of your focus to buy a specific version of the present and, by extension, fund the construction of your future. This is the final and most compelling argument for vigilant stewardship of your attention. The quality of your life, its texture, its emotional depth, its meaning, is not a predetermined fate. It is a cumulative acquisition, built transaction by transaction, from the raw material of what you have chosen to notice, to value, and to mentally engage with. A life of anxiety is not simply a run of bad luck. It is the result of a long series of investments in worry, in catastrophic forecasting, and in the amplification of threat. The investor has, over time, consistently spent their cognitive currency on these mental securities, and the portfolio of their mind is now dominated by them. Conversely, a life characterized by resilience and gratitude is not merely a blessed one. It is the product of countless deliberate investments in perspective, in learning from failure, and in acknowledging moments of grace, however small. The reality you inhabit tomorrow is being built today on the foundation of the attention you are spending now. This reframes every waking moment as a point of profound agency. The boring commute is not just lost time, it is an investment opportunity. You can spend that attention on simmering resentment about traffic, thereby purchasing a longer-lasting state of irritation, or you can invest it in a podcast that expands your mind, or in the simple practice of observing the world outside your window, thereby purchasing a moment of curiosity or peace. The difficult conversation with a colleague is not just a challenge to be endured. It is a chance to invest your attention deeply in listening and understanding, thereby purchasing a higher quality of relationship and a more collaborative future. When you internalize this, you stop seeing yourself as a passenger on a journey someone else has planned. You become the financier of the entire expedition. You hold the purse strings. This understanding instills a new kind of discipline, one born not of deprivation, but of passionate investment in a life of your own design. It empowers you to be ruthlessly frugal with the trivial and the toxic, because every moment spent on them is a diversion of funds from your core life projects. It inspires you to be wildly generous with your focus when it aligns with your deepest values, pouring your attention into a child's story, a lover's dream, or the silent progress of your own craft. The world will always present an infinite menu of potential investments for your attention. The power lies in knowing that you are the one who signs the checks. You are the one who decides whether to build a life of scattered reactivity or a legacy of focused intention. The life you will have next year, in 5 years, for the rest of your days, is being purchased right now with the attention you are spending today. Choose your investments with the wisdom of someone who knows they are building their entire world.